After the appearance of two premium heavy tanks Tier 8, fans of the medium tanks immediately started talking about how it would be magnificent for them to obtain a fighting machine on which they could use MT style and earn money simultaneously. Help came from the unexpected benefactor. China gave us a helping hand. Game devs decided to show gamers that this nation has got quite an interesting specimen called Type 59. Although outwardly it's virtually a twin brother of the Type 54, playing on this tank is different. The tier of this fighting machine in weight and dynamics and firepower of the Chinese are different as well. So, though this tank is rather popular, heaps of mistakes are being seen while playing it, especially by those who never drove T-54. This is why today we will talk about how to ride this Chinese premium Type 59 tank in the most profitable and fascinating way. To get to know the tank, first of all, you should understand what its general advantages and disadvantages are. And only after this, you may start choosing tactics, which will underscore strong sides and will make all the weak sides practically insignificant. So, the main advantage is its shape. Whatever you say, T-54 is one of the most seemingly logical fighting machines. And Type 59 has fully adopted this from its Soviet mate. True, its armor isn't so strong. Front hull armor is 20 millimeters thinner. But generally, ricochet happens even more often when you have to fight with other tiered tanks. Besides, since Type 59 is Tier 8, it's never thrown into battles of the Tier 10, and very rarely in 9th. Often, we're the 3rd to 4th in the line, but just because heavies go first. By the way, this is a huge advantage of this tank. Thanks to that, even the Battle of the Tier 9 is a rarity, considering these all-out tactics will be built in a different way, but we'll talk about this more later. Apart from the good shape of the armor, this tank has got a rather high maximum speed, 56 kilometers per hour. Type 59 is the fastest medium tank of Tier 8. Frankly speaking, because of the nasty engine, Chinese dynamics is pretty weak, and if you play without 100% crew, necessary equipment and consumables, your tank will be borderline feeble. That's why it's so important to equip it in the right way. Weapon for Type 59 is the same you would usually use for T-44. That is, a not-so-bad gun with medium armor 175 and 230 of damage. Considering this, dispersion and aiming time are rather high, which means that it's really hard for Chinese to be a sniper. Plus, there is no way to take lots of shell rounds on it. It's a tank of the close combat. I would even say of the brazen close combat. One of the drawbacks of this tank is that you can't upgrade Chinese crew, and naturally can't transfer tankers anywhere else. Mao recruited them to serve on Type 59 forever, although game devs promise us that other Chinese tanks will appear. Speaking of premium characteristics of Type 59, besides that it's thrown to tiers 7 to 8, the Chinese tank also has a heightened coefficient of earnings. On average, even for not a very successful battle, you can earn 60 to 70,000 credits. If a battle isn't so bad, it will be about 80 to 90,000. And in the combats where you were very impressive and fortune was in your favor, you can raise more than 100,000. You can check out forums where you can find screenshots of people raising more than 120,000 using Chinese. The tank costs 7,500 gold, but it can easily make you not care about credits anymore. For a day of casual gameplay, it is possible to earn 1 to 2 million, like a piece of cake. So if you need a good breadwinner and you love dynamic battles of medium tanks, Type 59 is your best choice. But let's leave all these economic details aside, and instead, let's talk about how to use this tank and what is better to put on it. In whole, Type 59 is a very aggressive tank and prefers to fight at close distances. If an enemy is far away and trying to increase the distance, this always will play against the Chinese, as you have to draw closer. Type 59 also allows you to occupy and hold the key positions. For all that, if the key modules are mounted just right, we'll have one of the fastest tanks of its level, which is earlier than the others on the important positions. And if you're the first there, it won't be easy for the enemy to knock out Chinese from the good position. If high-tier heavies are coming, it'll be more than enough just to wink and chat at the artillerymen, which will definitely deal with hard adversaries. If medium tanks are coming, we won't have any problems with it. It will hardly get a chance to knock out Type 59. On top of that, not only MTs are having problems with the Chinese's armor. Heavy tanks of the tiers 6 to 7 are also suffering. In one-on-one battles, Type 59 usually prevails. Also on this tank, as well as on MTs in general, it'll make sense to muscle through artillery positions. True, there is no point in competing with new light tanks. They're much faster and more flexible, and mainly because of this, to rush to artillery at the beginning of the fight is foolish. A rush towards artillery should come about differently. First of all, we just fight holding the boundaries and helping our mates on the flanks. But if you have an opportunity to jerk forward and come closer to the enemy base, you should do it. All in all, we're having a well-rounded tank that, as well as T-54, was designed for moving and to be such a bore fighter, climbing without any fear into the fight, and sometimes even ready to break the course of battle. A good breakthrough to the rear may come for enemy team at a very high price. But it's obvious that to change the course of the battle yourself, you need to control this tank. And before learning how to control, you need to choose the right combination of ammo and consumables. In this guide, we'll pick up two. One for an easy game, which will help those who still haven't driven a few thousand of battles in the world of tanks. And the second one we made for those who are already very familiar with the mechanic of the game and know not by the hearsay about high-level fights and can act boldly in any situation. So, the first tactical tip, as it was mentioned previously, the weakest point of the Type 59 is its low dynamics. So what should we do considering that dynamics is one of the most important parameters of the medium tank? Everything is quite easy, and here the most significant thing is to have the right combination of modules and equipment. First of all, let's install improved ventilation. It'll give a bonus to the whole crew, and it means that it'll improve skills of the driver. It'll give an increase in speed of acceleration and turns, and that'll be a good start. The next step in improving dynamic is quality oil. It'll give you a significant bonus, and neglecting it would be similar to committing a crime. There is only one exception: substituting quality oil for removed speed governor. By the way, you can use both, but in this case, you should really have trust in your crew, who won't die on you in the most critical moments. If we purchase oil and removed speed governor, there will be a place only for a repair kit. We essentially recommend using the following consumables: repair kit, first aid kit, and oil. As for equipment, apart from the fan, we will put tank gun rammer and enhanced gun laying drive. This is the standard combo, which allows us to fire faster and more accurately. Due to the ruses, Chinese tank now has got good dynamics. It accelerates and maneuvers faster than German and American tanks of the 8th tier. Only T-44 is quicker, but not by much. The next task is, as far as it's quite difficult to fight heavy tanks of the tiers 8 to 9 alone, we won't touch it at all. The main task is to beat the little ones. We attack only the ones whose levels are lower. The way things are, we will destroy 2 or 3 enemies simultaneously, because they just can't fight against Type 59. All the other MT of the Tier 8 can't do this. They will be beaten. though it may not be by much, still beaten. The majority of shell rounds will bounce off the Chinese. And if you're attacked by an amateur gamer who doesn't know all the weak spots, only the high explosive shells will rescue him. But while he'll be trying to damage you, we will destroy him completely. Here, the power of our gun is more than enough. It goes through excellently and damages not so bad. Attention! If you're fighting with someone who is lower in tier than you, never ever in any conditions try to whirl near such an enemy. It's the biggest mistake you can ever make. It's rather hard to break front hull armor of the Chinese, and if you were to add an interaction with an enemy moving in right or left direction, we're turning around the enemy. He can hit us in the flank or rear. Always turn your front towards low-level enemies. Always. We should use the paths on the map, which are usually used by the medium tanks. Using these paths is the best option for the reason that you will easily catch all the medium tanks of your enemy, including those that are lower level than you. And if you're alone and fighting 2 or 3 foes at a time, it'll be good enough. Your team will get a bonus towards its fighting spirit. As you could understand, equipment makes us more or less mobile, so we can just destroy everyone whose level is lower. This tactic is pretty good. Playing on Chinese is pure pleasure and earning in the process. But there is another way. Let's call it the hardcore Chinese. Equipped this way, we would say that its mobility is enough, and seeing that our tank isn't very dynamic to begin with, it's okay, and we will not try to accelerate it. We'll grow the battle capability and fight against equal enemies, and even against those who are of a higher level. Let's mount Rammer, Enhanced Gun Laying Drive, and Vertical Stabilizer. It'll give us sped-up aiming time that is essential for Type 59. Due to this, we'll fire faster and therefore make more damage. Now we remove oil and consumables and replace it with repair kit, first aid kit, and fire extinguisher. Sometimes this tank can catch fire, so it'll be better to increase the defense than to use oil, which is useless for this type of tactics. Using this tactics, it'll be good to hold the key points and break under protected flanks of the enemy. There is no need to be in a hurry. The main idea is to appear in the right place and cause a commotion there. Moreover, in the end, Chinese's speed is relatively high. It's just not so mobile. In terms of battle capability, you can effectively fight with others whose tiers are equal to yours. Soviet tank T-44 isn't terrifying to us. Game devs are planning to redesign it because now the Chinese is just floutingly more powerful than it. Considering that the gun on both tanks is equivalent, Type 59 is getting damaged 1 time out of 3, and the Soviet one, always. With Pershing and Panther II, things are not so easy. The first one is just a very powerful tank, which has a very good damage and penetration. With Panther, it's better to fight in a close combat, for at a bigger range there are no chances at all. If an enemy puts a tank on a rib, it'll be rather hard to damage it, and German will be able to hit you regularly. But against them, you should generally look for a classical tactics of waltzing around. Don't expose your sides, and hope that your enemy isn't so powerful in aiming at your weak spots. And to further complicate enemy's life, you should constantly drive off and drive up to rub along his sides and so on. To fight against heavy tanks of tiers 8 to 9 solo is pretty difficult for the Chinese. To twirl them is impossible. You can damage them less, and front armor helps, but not always. With whom it is actually necessary to fight is with KV-5. Here you should use a basic tactic of T-54 against all tall enemies. Rub your side against theirs and don't let the enemy fire at your hull. In this case, to damage a turret is virtually impossible, as you should aim at weak spots, and to do this is not so easy. We need to fire at smaller turrets of KV-5, or go to the rear of this tank. By the way, you can behave like this with different heavy tanks, like E-75 and VK-4502. Such behavior is just a terrible headache for them. If you decide not only to rub your sides of the enemy and fray his nerves, but also to destroy him, here you should use another tactic. We call this tactic, the more Chinese, the merrier. Using this tactic, you're playing not alone, but with your mates. With mates on Type 59s. Now we're talking about a platoon of premier tanks. Because if you take a Panther II into a group, for example, the balancer will throw you into a game for which a German MT is suitable, and it can be battles of Tier 9s and 10s. When Chinese tanks get together in groups, they are capable of things that are usually done by a pack of wolves consisting of 3 T-54s. However, seeing that Soviet MTs are often held back by powerful tanks of Tier 10 and exceptionally powerful artillery, they can't always own everyone at once with howls and halloos. For Chinese, it's easier. 2 or 3 Type 59 tanks eat any heavy tanks of Tier 8. Generally speaking, they destroy everyone who will come their way. It is better to play according to this scheme. In the beginning, you need to keep together. All 3 are driving next to each other. First of all, destroy equal enemies of the lower tier. Then, if you can catch lonely heavies of Tier 8 or 9, attack them. And if they are covered or just really hard to kill, harm them lightly and break through to the enemy base. After causing havoc there, you can separate. One will go to defend your own base, the second one will take the enemy base, and the third one will assist either of these two. Only an organized or very experienced enemy can provide any resistance against such a group. The enemy's team should plan a series of steps for winning. But as of now, there are lots of weak opponents on servers. The Chinese bullying often remains unpunished. Keep in mind, if you play in a platoon of Chinese, one of the tanks should be equipped with optics. Type 59 isn't the most sharp-sighted tank, and when you drive towards the enemy, you may not notice a lot of enemies. Optics will increase chances of detecting enemies from further away. By the way, it's not a bad idea to pair it with ventilation. It'll improve the quality of scouting. Even if you don't have friends that own a Chinese, you can find companions right on the battlefield. Type 59 can excellently help other MTs of Tier 8. For example, if you're fighting with Pershing or Panther II, you can play the role of he who takes the main blow. While they'll be firing at enemies, you can put your strong front forward, waltz and ricochet rounds. In general, all the tricks with heavy tanks can be done with other MTs. Trying to fight them alone is pretty difficult, but when there are at least 2 of you, not difficult at all. Just remember that among your colleagues, only you've got a perfect armor, and you should always go first. If you drag behind, you won't bring any benefits to the team. In conclusion, Type 59 is an excellent medium tank of Tier 8. Although its battle capabilities are almost equal to the other MT opponents, fortune favors it more, because the Chinese never gets into the world of pain populated by T-30, IS-7, Patton, and E-50. Type 59 almost always gets drafted into very favorable battles, and because of this, experience and credits are very easy to earn. We'll finish for now. Thanks for watching our video tutorial. Author Kirill Oreshkin, game designer and project consultant Pavel Mirev, portal mmorpg.su. Thanks everyone. See you.